Support Wrestle Talk!
Give us a subscribe.
Wrestling history is littered with important heel turns, grumpy boys and their big paddies that, in the best case scenario, can revitalize an entire company. Hogan turning heel in WCW made $6 bajillions of the dollars, and WCW won the Monday Night War, right up until Vince McMahon turned heel and won it right the back. Sometimes heel turns don't work. There are plenty of those. Becky Lynch turned heel on Charlotte at SummerSlam and overnight became WWE's biggest face. Rikishi going from bum man to bum murderer. Sting turning heel in WCW and the fans refusing to boo him because no, Sting is a nice man. Daniel Bryan being history's greatest monster by asking us to recycle and try a juice cleanse. But wrestling is wrestling, gimmicks get changed, and most of the time, failed heel turns aren't significantly damaging. Most of the time. This is 10 wrestling heel turns that massively backfired. Number 10, Braun Strowman's career momentum gets murdered. Always the bronze-maid and never the bride. It seems that ever since Braun Strowman wasn't finished with Roman Reigns, and according to the ancient prophecy, he's still not finished with him, it seems like we've been waiting for WWE to pull the trigger and turn the indestructible double bass playing, ambulance flipping, grappling hook wielding Looney Tune into the face of the company. Indeed, when he won Money in the Bank in 2019, we thought it was finally happening. He got a thunderous pop at SummerSlam when it looked like he would cash in against the Bog Dog and the Beastie Boy, and then, oh no. He turned heel, allied himself with Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler, and was immediately nerfed beyond all recognition. The man who could flip over the sky itself suddenly needed backup. The indestructible monster suddenly couldn't finish a Hell in a Cell match after Lesnar interference, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back for the audience's patience with the brown snowman. Despite them scrapping his heel run right the quick, Strowman has never again reached that level of god-tier popularity, and now he dances, and I am sad. Number 9, HBK turns heel, ruins dream match. Okay, so maybe 40-year-old Shawn Michaels versus 52-year-old Hulk Hogan may not have been a dream match to some of you hardcore wrestling fans who like main eventers with their original hips, but I was excited about the main event of SummerSlam 2005, god damn it. The match itself, however, was a bewildering kaleidoscope of limbs and flesh. So HBK is having, shall we say, a bit of a tantrum in this match, overselling Hogan's offense like he's Billy Mays. Shawn was a bit peeved with the Hulkster because his creative control had taken over the feud, and one of his many forced changes was that Shawn Michaels turn heel. HBK was against the move, thinking it should be face versus face, but Hogan got his way, and it was clear he wasn't in WWE for much of the 90s because otherwise he would know, don't make Shawn grumpy. Well, said Mr. Hickenbottom, if you can't beat him, do enough Cirque du Soleil to break wrestling. And so, well, the match happened and there were no rematches. So this is what HBK versus Hulk Hogan looks like forever. HBK turned face immediately after SummerSlam, and so the heel turn that Hulky thought would make the match more exciting blew up in his big orange face. Number 8, Bret Hart becomes just another guy in WCW. It's been said before, but it bears repeating. 1997, weird year for Vince McMahon as Grand Ham Slammers. The weirdest and probably most stressful part of that year was the fact that his company had pretty much only 2 definite main eventers, and one of them off to his biggest competition. That's one of those days you remember. The circumstances of Bret Hart's departure were so insane, so attention-grabbing. He was the goddamn WWF champion. He'd been screwed. What the hell was he going to do in WCW? Answer: turn heel and become just another member of the already tired NWO. Instead of getting Hart versus Hogan on pay-per-view, he became one of his lackeys and didn't really have long-term major feuds with anyone. Golden sand just pouring through WCW's fingers, all the money they could have made by treating Bret like the huge star that he was. Instead, to give you an idea of how much WCW blundered it, Bret Hart versus Hulk Hogan only happened one time on an episode of Nitro, and it ended with a non-finish. Well done, everyone. Here's your good job cake. Number 7, Michael Cole makes Raw unwatchable. Should we enjoy it when a heel is on screen? Was CM Punk a good heel because we respected his charisma, storytelling, and wrestling? We actually enjoyed it when he was around? If a heel is cool, is that more a case of ego getting in the way of the product? And should we in fact hate the heel being around? Because just taken in isolation, I think when Michael Cole turned heel in 2010, he was, from a purist perspective, the best heel in WWE. I think generally because the purpose of every part of a wrestling show should be in service of selling matches to the audience, I want to see someone kick the shit out of Michael Cole more than any other heel on the roster. He was a swaggering phallus, a Pratt Man Jones, and a prick lord dweeb storm and a dick cup, so job done. Except he was also lead announcer, play-by-play announcer, and audible 100% of the time. There is only so much I can stands no more. He was such a good heel that he broke the show, which on one hand has to be respected, but on the other hand is the remote control which I'm using to change the channel. Number 6, Jim Ross turns heel with fake Razor and fake Diesel. Good old JR has been bad old JR not once, not 4 times, but twice in his WWE career. Before he ascended to the pantheon of wrestling legend where you're such a cherished part of the industry you can never really be an effective heel again, they turned him twice. The second time in 1999 was an immediate bust and quickly scrapped. They tried to turn him heel by kicking Michael Cole in the bollocks. That didn't work. The first time, however, hoo boy. The year was 1996, also known as the year that Hall and Nash defected to WCW, created the NWO, and gently placed Vince over their knees and patted his little bottom. WWE's plan to counter the betrayal was basically Doctor Whoing Razor Ramon and Diesel. Since WWE still owned those characters, they recast them with Rick Bogner and Glenn That's Gotta Be Kane Jacobs and thought the fans would say, yeah, seems legit. It would be like if I wrote the word money on a piece of paper and tried to buy a Honda Civic with it. In an even more baffling move, they tried to sell this by turning JR heel and having him basically be their manager. So the face commentators were like, that's not Diesel and Razor JR. And he responds, no, you shut up. What was the plan? I don't understand. Did you want the copycats to get over or not? The whole thing just blew up and made everyone involved in it look bad, and WCW's edgier product all the better by comparison. Number 5, Vince Russo turns the entire mid-card heel. Oh, I'm sorry, WCW. You might want to calm down because I'm not finished with you. After teetering on the precipice for years, in 2000, World Championship Wrestling lost its f***ing mind. See, my dad, Eric Bischoff, had seduced all of Vince's top talent away with contractual creative control, and those bad seeds began to flourish into trees made out of cantankerous old men who weren't horny for putting over young talent. In late 99, WCW decided to hire Vince Russo, the man at the time commonly credited with creating WWE's Crash-style Attitude Era programming to come in and fix all of WCW's problems. WWE had the best mid-card in wrestling history at the time. Hold my beer, said WCW, and proceeded to turn its entire mid-card heel as his gigantic Uber stable, the New Blood, against the Millionaires Club, aka Sting, Ric Flair, DDP, Hogan, everyone the fans were tuning in to see. Russo appeared as an on-screen character, even going as far as firing Hulk Hogan in a promo that went from work to shoot real quick, and ended with Hogan suing the company. A gigantic explosion of bad ideas in a time when such things could not be afforded. Number 4, TNA becomes immortal and slowly dies. The New World Order was something that started small, brilliant and explosive, and gradually ballooned into a stultifying, multifaceted, product-consuming blob. TNA said, let's do that, but faster. Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff went to TNA in 2010 and started playing the old hits. They did an auto-tune remix of the Monday Night Wars that resembled less two titans fighting and more like a kid making pew-pew gun sounds at his dad while he reads the paper and ignores him. The big plan, however, debuted at Bound for Glory when Jeff Hardy turned heel with about 60% of the roster to form Immortal, which was like the NWO, but like starting with the bit where it was too big. No shade on Hardy because his Antichrist gimmick was actually pretty good, but it got lost in amongst the blob. Plus, he was also their biggest mainstream draw for casual WWE fans at the time, and turning him into a corporate raid monster who did less flippy shit didn't help ratings or attendance at all. If Hardy had turned heel by himself, it could have been something interesting, but the mass healing only evoked the worst memories of WCW. Speaking of, number 3, the last hope for WCW turns. If this list is starting to feel like I'm dogpiling on WCW, well, remember, this isn't a list of the worst heel turns, but the most damaging ones, and, well, WWE is still here. So, WCW in 2000 then. A million cats in a cardboard box, except the cats are all insane ideas, the biggest and most insane being turning Goldberg, the last truly WCW-created megastar, genuine, unstoppable superhero, into a corporate heel against Kevin Nash, who had screwed him out of the most famous undefeated streak of all time. I guess it was shocking if 25 world title changes that year, including David Arquette and Vince Russo winning the belt, hadn't completely immunized the audience from the ability to even register surprise anymore. But compromising Goldberg was one of the last great mistakes in WCW's death throes. It was dropped shortly after, but the damage was done, and the company's last superhero, its biggest character, became just another unremarkable part of the great blurring carousel of character alignment, motivation, and consequence that was WCW. Number 2, Steve Austin ends the Attitude Era. Hooray! Something that isn't WCW. Now, if I told you to name the most famous heel turn of all time, chances are that Stone Cold selling his soul to muscle and fitness Satan is probably going to be up there. It was the exclamation point on the greatest pay-per-view of all time, the ultimate swerve and a brave and daring subversion of everything that had rocketed WWE to this point. It was also a huge mistake. Many fans couldn't accept that Austin and McMahon could ever be friends after 3 years of them making each other's lives hell. Some people thought Austin thrived in the role, adding a hilarious new dimension to his character. That's subjective, and we could go round and round. What's undisputed is that it was a major misstep for business, because who does Austin feud with? Rock was gone until SummerSlam, Triple H was heel, Angle was heel, Jericho was mid-card, Kane was mid-card, the only true main eventer left was Undertaker, and as much as we idolize the dead man now, he had never truly carried the company as the top guy, especially not as Biker Taker. Pay-per-view buys went down, ratings went down, and the pay-per-view hot streak that WWE had started in 2000 slowly petered out before the lackluster invasion cemented the Attitude Era as being truly dead. But hey, WWE's still here, right? Number 1, the finger poke of doom for WCW. So, Goldberg was WCW champion going into Starrcade 98. He was still undefeated and sort of the best thing going at the time. However, he had beaten everyone on the roster pretty much, and well, it was Starrcade, so they decided to beat him via mischievous electricity. Even though Hall had interfered, Nash was still a face at the time, denounced Hall's interference, and offered Goldberg a rematch. However, that match ended up happening between Nash and a returning Hulk Hogan, who had taken some brief time away to run for president. Isn't that silly? The bell rang, Hogan poked Nash in the chest, who fell down and let Hogan pin him, cue Nash turning heel, and a reunion of the original NWO lineup after months of infighting. Fun fact, this was the same week that Mankind won the WWF title on Raw, a change that WCW spoiled and caused hundreds of thousands of people to change the channel to see it happen. Many commentators single out this episode, and in fact the finger poke of doom, as being the beginning of the end for WCW, especially in the classic The Death of WCW, where it was called the single most destructive Nitro in the history of the company. I guess David Arquette won the belt on Thunder, so fair enough. It's perhaps oversimplifying things to blame one booking event for the death of a company, but it's hard to argue against the fact that this was the point when WCW's ratings began to steadily decline without ever coming back. They promised Goldberg versus Nash the rematch, fans got a non-match, and Hogan back on top. It proved to be one betrayal too many for the fans, a sign that nothing really mattered, no promises would be kept, the same old boys will kill all your heroes, that it wasn't worth investing yourself in this parade of senseless twists. WCW didn't sink overnight, but this poked a hole in the boat. That's our list. What other turns were the dog worst? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget, you can check out the first episode of our brand new wrestling RPG series No Rolls Barred over on Parts Fun Known right now. Click the link. Click it, you idiot. Shut up, you're not doing anything anyway. Watch it. Watch, you idiot. You're an idiot.